Chapter 37. It was really an amazing sight, and in 2 or 3 minutes, as soon as people below realised this now couldn't possibly be a bomb, they came pouring out of shelters and the subways to gape at the marvel. The streets, for half a mile around the building, were jammed with men and women, and when the word spread that there were actually living things moving out on top of the great round ball, then everyone went wild with excitement. "It's a flying saucer!" they shouted. "They're from outer space! They're men from Mars, or maybe they came from the moon." And a man who had a pair of binoculars to his eyes said, "Well, they look pretty peculiar to me, I'll tell you that." Police cars and fire engines came screaming in from all over the city and pulled out outside the Empire State Building. 200 firemen and 600 policemen swarmed into the building and went up in the elevators as high as they could. Then they poured out onto the observation roof, which was the place where tourists stand just at the bottom of the big spike. All the policemen were holding their guns at the ready, with their fingers on the triggers, and the firemen were clutching their hatchets. But from where they stood, almost directly underneath the peach, they couldn't actually see the travellers on the top. "Ahoy there!" shouted the chief of police. "Come on out and show yourselves!" Suddenly, the great brown head of the centipede appeared over the side of the peach. His black eyes, as large as 2 round marbles, glared down at the policemen and the firemen below. Then his monstrous ugly face broke into a wide grin. The policemen and the firemen all started shouting at once. "Look out!" they cried. "It's a dragon! It's not a dragon, it's a wampus! It's a gorgon! It's a king serpent! It's a proc! It's a manicore!" 3 firemen and 5 policemen fainted and had to be carried away. "It's a schnozzwanger! It's a wang doodle!" yelled the head of the fire department. The centipede kept on grinning. He seemed to be enjoying enormously the commotion that he was causing. "Now see here," shouted the chief of police, cupping his hands to his mouth. "You listen to me. I want you to tell me exactly where you've come from." "We've come from thousands of miles away," the centipede shouted back, grinning more broadly than ever, showing his brown teeth. "There you are," called the chief of the police. "I told you they're from Mars." "I guess you're right," said the head of the fire department. At this point, the old green grasshopper poked his huge green head over the side of the peach, alongside the centipedes. 6 more strong men fainted when they saw him. "And that one's an onyx!" screamed the head of the fire department. "I just know it's an onyx!" "Or a cockatrice!" yelled the chief of police. "Stand back, men! It may jump down on us at any moment." "What on earth are you talking about?" the old green grasshopper said to the centipede. "Search me," the centipede answered, "but they seem to be in an awful stew about something." Then Miss Spider's large, black, murderous-looking head, which was to a stranger the most terrifying thing of all, appeared next to the grasshoppers. "Snakes and ladders!" yelled the head of the fire department. "We're finished now! It's a giant scorpula!" "Oh, it's worse than that!" cried the chief of police. "It's a venomous kind! A look at its vermicious, gruesome face!" "It's that kind that eats fully grown men for breakfast," said the head of the fire department, asking, going white as a sheet. "I'm afraid it is." "Oh, please, why doesn't somebody help us get down from here?" Miss Spider called. "It's making me giddy." "This could be a trick," said the head of the fire department. "Don't anyone make a move until I say." "They probably got space guns," muttered the chief of police. "Well, we've got to do something," the head of the fire department announced grimly. "About 5 million people are standing down there in the streets watching us." "Then why don't you put up a ladder?" the chief of police asked him. "I'll stand at the bottom and hold it steady for you while you go up and see what's happening." "Thanks very much," snapped the head of the fire department. Soon there were no less than 7 large fantastic faces peering down from over the side of the peach. The centipedes, the old green grasshoppers, Miss Spiders, the earthworms, the ladybirds, the silkworms, and the glowworms. And a sort of panic was beginning to break out from among the firemen and policemen on the rooftop. Then all at once the panic stopped, and a great gasp of astonishment went up all round. For now a small boy was seen to be standing up there beside the other creatures. His hair was blowing in the wind, and he was laughing and waving and calling out, "Hello, everybody! Hello!" For a few moments the men below just stood and stared and gaped. They simply couldn't believe their eyes. "Bless my soul!" cried the head of the fire department, going red in the face. "Is that really a little boy, isn't it?" "Oh, don't be frightened of us, please," James called out. "We're so glad to be here." What about those others beside you?" shouted the chief of police. "Are any of them dangerous?" "Of course they're not dangerous," James answered. "They're the nicest creatures in the world. Allow me to introduce them to you one by one, and then I'm sure you'll believe me. My friends, this is the centipede, and let me make it known. He's so sweet and gentle, although he's overgrown. The Queen of Spain again has summoned him by phone, to babysit and sing and knit, and to be a chaperone. When nurse is off and all the royal children are gone, small wonder," said the fireman, "they're no longer on the throne." "The earthworm, on the other hand," said James, beginning to expand, "is great for digging up the land and making old soils newer. Moreover, you should understand he would be absolutely grand for digging subway tunnels or for making you a sewer." The earthworm blushed and beamed with pride. Miss Spider clapped and cheered and cried, "Any words could be truer." And the grasshopper, ladies and gents, is a boon in millions and millions of ways. You've only to ask him to give you a tune, and he plays and he plays and he plays. As a toy for your children, he's perfectly sweet. There's nothing so good in the shops. You've only to tickle the soles of his feet, and he hops and he hops and he hops. "Well, he can be very fierce," exclaimed the head of the cops. "And without excuse, I'd like to introduce this charming glowworm. Lover of simplicity, she's easy to install on a ceiling or on your wall. Although it smacks of eccentricity, it's really rather clever, for thereafter you will never have the slightest need for using electricity." "I'd wage no less than 52, policeman cried. "If this is true, that creature'll get some fabulous publicity." And here we have Miss Spider, with a mile of thread inside her, who has personally requested me to say that she never met Miss Muffet, or her charming little Tuffet. If she had, she'd not have frightened her away. Should her look sometimes alarm you, then I don't think it would harm you to repeat the last 100 times a day. I must never kill a spider, I must only help and guide her, and invite her in the nursery to play. The policeman nodded slightly, and the fireman smiled politely, and then a dozen people cried, "Hooray!" And here's my darling ladybird, so beautiful, so kind, my greatest comfort since this trip began. She has 400 children, and she's left them all behind. They're coming on the next peach, if they can. The cops cried, "She's entrancing," or the firemen started dancing. The crowds all started cheering to a man. And now the silkworm, James went on, whose silk will bear comparison with all the greatest skills there are in Rome and Philadelphia. If you would search the whole world through, from Paraguay to Timbuktu, I think that you would find one bit of silk that would compare with it. Even the shops in Singapore won't have the stuff, and what is more, the silkworm had, I'll have you know, the honour not so long ago to spin and weave and so impress the Queen of England's wedding dress, and she's already made and sent a waistcoat for your president. Well, good for her, the cops cried out, and all at once a mighty shout went all up around the Empire State. Well, get them down at once, why wait?